BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Okay, so we are at the end of the year. It is now December 28th, and we can look back on 2019. And first thing I can say, though, is that we have a discussion going on this channel about the Zodiac Killer, and we're going to be continuing that, but I also thought we should be doing some other subjects as well, because I don't ever want the channel to just be focused only on one thing. Not that that's a bad thing for other people, but I hope we can discuss many subjects. And we had a crazy year in the political world for 2019. The Democratic Party is really heating up with their primary. And last night I just encountered a copy of the most recent debate with all the presidential candidates that qualified on there. And I don't know, I think that there's something wrong with me. I now get just kind of curious, like, what would Tom Steyer say? I mean, I had seen the highlights of this, like, the condensed version, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm just completely out of my mind, but the first candidate I wanted to hear from was Tom Steyer, one of them that has, like, absolutely no chance at all. Maybe that's a weird thing to say, or maybe it just means I'm high in trade openness or something, because I just want to latch onto all of the people at the bottom of the polls. Because do you ever just get the feeling like maybe there's something there that we can learn from this person? Or perhaps, in a different way, you wonder, why is somebody like Biden at the top of the polls? But what about Warren and Sanders and Buttigieg? Why are they at the top of the polls, but other people are down at the bottom? And we did an upload about Tom Steyer on this channel, and we did bring up the quote that someone else said about him. It's not that he's so bad, it's just he's so irrelevant, he's not really worth discussing that much. But when you actually listen to what Tom Steyer is saying, he's talking about some things that would be very valuable to a lot of progressives. He's talking about the wealth tax, saying that he was for the wealth tax prior to Elizabeth Warren, and one of the reasons why is to have a 10% tax reduction for the bottom 95% of Americans. I mean, it sounds like that should be something that the progressives and the liberal Democrats would be in favor of, but I don't really know. I really believe Tom Steyer's message is not connecting with people, and a lot of people are saying that Tom Steyer only got into the debates because of his ability to use his own financial resources, lots of ads, and as well as perhaps buying his way into the debates, for lack of a better term. Moving on from Steyer, though, in the presidential primary, we have somebody like Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, and we've done one upload about her on this channel when she did her kickoff rally in Minnesota in the snow, and she was brave enough not to wear a hat. I still commend her for that, mind you. Other than that, we haven't really said anything about Amy Klobuchar because she really falls into the same category. When I'm listening to Amy Klobuchar talk, all I can think about is it's like I'm watching a stand-up comedian who is just in a room with a very tough crowd. It was like, well, I mean, I guess that's not such a bad thing to say. Oh, hey, no one else is laughing, no one else is applauding. Okay, maybe I shouldn't either. I mean, it's just she's not winning over the crowds. We're talking about things like line delivery, passion, enthusiasm, and she's really trying to just carry this message of Midwestern spirit, but I don't know what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with, it doesn't seem to be resonating. It doesn't seem to be connecting with the people in the audience, and you're just like, okay, I mean, I guess that's not a bad point. I mean, she doesn't seem like a terrible political personality. She's been in the Senate for just about 10 years. I am so out of the loop. I mean, I guess I don't follow Minnesota politics too closely or something like that, but I thought that Amy Klobuchar was the senator that had replaced Al Franken after he resigned. I thought she was very new to the Senate, then I found out she's been there for like 10 years, and I'm like, what? I mean, I didn't know her until the Kavanaugh hearings, but a big thing is, though, we got 535 people in the House and the Senate combined or something like that. Maybe more, maybe less. And the people are always changing, especially with the House of Representatives. I try to remember as many people as I can, but sometimes you just encounter someone that you should know, but you don't. And Amy Klobuchar falls in that category. Would I say that Amy Klobuchar is so irrelevant that she's not worth mentioning? No, because this might be one of the few times when we can actually listen to some of the conspiracy theorists out there and be sort of like, there is this thing that's been launched by the Democratic National Committee. Like, they've chosen their nominee ahead of time, and they wanted to overload the field with candidates so that it's going to divide the votes and it's going to take delegates away from a certain candidate, most likely Bernie, and they might say Bernie and Warren. But this really could be something that we could be looking out for. And, I mean, is this a true thing? I don't know, but you got to wonder about some of these people that are entering into the race, like Deval Patrick. I mean, I looked at his campaign website. It is bare bones. It doesn't really seem like someone who's putting in an honest effort to becoming president. Deval Patrick doesn't seem like a horrible political personality either, mind you. We just did an upload about him recently on the channel. But at the same time, his website was very bare. And if anybody would be kind of falling into this conspiratorial category, I don't know, maybe Amy Klobuchar. Some other people were suggesting that John Delaney was a DNC plant, and I'm like, John Delaney is at like 0.5% in the polls. He declared in 2017 he's self-funded. It's most likely Delaney is not. It's most likely that Steyer is not. And even Bloomberg, I mean, these guys who are self-funded, I mean, I don't know how the DNC would get them to come in as part of this conspiracy and then spend their own money to the tune of the tens of millions or something like that. Tom Steyer's actually spent over $300 million, more than John Delaney's entire net worth, on fundraising and ad buying and such. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Tom Steyer got into the debates, as well as people like Tulsi Gabbard did not. When Tulsi Gabbard has a huge following, you can find countless Tulsi Gabbard supporters around. I mean, Tom Steyer supporters are a little bit harder to find. Now, let's talk about some of the social issues that are actually going on in America. Pete Buttigieg hosted a fundraiser in a wine cave with some very rich donors, and everyone's trying to call him out on this. Is this just political? Yes, absolutely. Are they just trying to take Pete Buttigieg down because he's currently rising in the polls? Yes, absolutely. But one of the things is, I really do not like how Pete Buttigieg tries to defend and block these controversies. He did the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard when she kind of called him out on wanting to use the American military to go after drug cartels in Mexico. And then he starts talking about a U.S.-Mexico invasion. Maybe you heard Tulsi just saying, "That's not what I said, that's not what I said, that's not what I said." And I wish she hadn't had such kind of a... I also thought her response was weak to that. I mean, I remember somebody like Carly Fiorina in the previous debate cycle just saying, "I think America heard you." I mean, that would be a stronger way to respond. But, I mean, Pete Buttigieg just does not deflect the scandals well. Then he starts talking about, hey, I only accept donations of $2,800. That's the limit. And, of course, somebody like Elizabeth Warren can very easily call him out and just be like, okay, Buttigieg, it's not about the money. It's about selling positions like ambassadorships and cabinet positions. People give enormous amounts of contributions to your fundraiser in exchange for political power. I mean, that's kind of the heart and soul of what's going on. But those are just a few notes from the most recent political debate. I don't necessarily know if we are going to, how valuable these debates are going to be. But what I would say about them is that it's giving us a little bit of a window inside of how some of these things function. And yes, the money is not everything. It's the political power that is tied to the money. And there's that great line in House of Cards or something where it comes from Frank Underwood, the now disgraced Kevin Spacey, when he sort of talks about how money is the McMansion in Sarasota that starts to fall apart after 10 years, but power is the old stone house. We got to look at how these political connections are forged. And when we're going to be looking at some of the other things, like they brought up the concept of Elizabeth Warren taking selfies with people. And is this presidential behavior? And Joe Biden's like, I take selfies too. I know how to use a smartphone. And I was listening to another program, WCR, and they were just saying, one of the problems with democracy is sometimes you have to dumb things down, so then you have to have these types of conversations. Should a president be allowed to take a selfie or something like that? And unless you're somebody like Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback for the Redskins, who missed the final play of the game because he was in the stands taking selfies with fans. I mean, if the president were neglecting his or her duties, and I do say his or her, being optimistic for the future, by taking selfies with people, all right, that's something. But It's not a big deal. That's all we want to say about that. Andrew Yang has a lot of momentum. And I do think it's very impressive where he is. A lot of people are just like, Andrew Yang is in the single digits. He's never going to be president. There's no point in even discussing anything about him. But if you actually look at somebody like Andrew Yang, he was unheard of in 2017. Lots of people knew who Tulsi Gabbard was. Lots of people knew who Marianne Williamson was. Lots of people knew who Bernie and Warren and Biden were. Of course, they are higher in the polls. And I don't mean Marianne Williamson or Tulsi Gabbard are higher in the polls than Yang. But they were more famous than Andrew Yang was. He was not well known. He was not even in the political arena in 2017. But the thing is, people are resonating with his message. They really like what he has to say. I don't think he was the most articulate public speaker in the debates. Overall, I don't know if he is like the most kind of captivating public speaker. I almost think I can see him just kind of like trying to read over lines in his head. Purely speculation, just purely an observation. I have no idea if that's 100% true, but he's like, oh crap, what was this one again? Oh yes, this is it. I mean, I just kind of get that feeling from Andrew Yang. He definitely isn't a super polished politician. But at the same time, though, the freedom dividend is one of the things we talked about a lot on this channel in 2018. Someone left a comment on one of my Andrew Yang uploads in the past, and they were like, Andrew Yang has other issues. And I'm like, yes, we did a whole upload about Andrew Yang and the platform. He is for Puerto Rican statehood. And, I mean, that's really something for the Puerto Ricans to decide. I can't say anything for or against that, but Andrew Yang is for Puerto Rican statehood. He is for the president and the vice president making all nuclear weapons decisions simultaneously. I think that's an absolutely brilliant idea because it's like too much power is in the hand of one person. And of course, Andrew Yang was for Medicare for All. And that's very important because he supports a UBI, that being the freedom dividend. By the way, he only calls his universal basic income the freedom dividend by his own admission because if you use the word freedom, it sounds more appealing to conservatives and Republicans. That's his quote, not mine. And it's like, but a lot of people who are going to be supporting something like UBI are against Medicare for All. And this is why a lot of people were afraid of universal basic income. They were saying that, okay, you're going to put in this universal basic income, then you're going to cut all the programs. No health care for anyone. We gave you $1,000 a month, you're on your own. But Andrew Yang is for Medicare for All. At least he was last time we talked about it. Some candidates have reversals. I believe that Tim Ryan's dropped out of the race. I believe he started out being for Medicare for All. But eventually he moved a little bit closer to the center, which was a big mistake. Tim Ryan ran a disastrous campaign. And then you have the other people like Joe Sestak. Like, I followed him when he did his 105-mile walk across New Hampshire, visiting with different people, watching the videos on Instagram. He really didn't seem like an evil person, but somebody with like Joe Sestak, and Tom Steyer perhaps is in the same category. We can't really put them under the microscope yet and start prodding them and see how they respond to things. Because with individuals like that, people aren't really asking them the tough, challenging questions. No one is really going under the surface and looking at the dark skeletons in their closet. Because as we said from the beginning, it's just not enough people are listening. And Joe Sestak, I believe, was not involved in any of the debates, nor was Steve Bullock. But, some candidates are not dropping out. John Delaney is not dropping out. Marianne Williamson is not dropping out. She is still very strong on social media. And this is what I'm talking about when you see people like Amy Klobuchar and Tom Steyer. They are up there on the debate stage. But people like Marianne Williamson, Tulsi Gabbard, they have much larger followings. And you can really see that their supporters are online very visibly. They're really very passionate about these candidates. I don't really see that from Amy Klobuchar and Tom Steyer. I saw one Tom Steyer sign in somebody's window. One. And when it comes to Amy Klobuchar, no, I don't really know anyone who supports her. I don't see people talking about her online about how they're just like, hey, I really want Amy Klobuchar as president, but she's still at 2% in the polls. Is she a DNC plant? I don't have enough certainty to say that. I said I was a little bit suspicious because people have presented me with this conspiracy theory, and I'm like, well, if anyone's a DNC plant, who would it be? And I just told you two names, Klobuchar and Deval Patrick, but I don't know if that's really true. I said I don't think it would be Delaney, Bloomberg, or Steyer because they are self-funded and they seem to be operating somewhat independent of the DNC. But, we don't really know what's going on. Sometimes there are leaks and we do learn information. If anything has happened in the last 8 to 10 years, we have learned that people are doing things behind closed doors. Things actually go on behind closed doors, and we have to be somewhat aware of it. The politicians talking on the television do not always tell the truth. They're also representing an agenda for somebody else. It's a very easy way to deceive people. And it's like if politics is going to be the art of the possible, we need to just have more open discussions and transparency. That's why this new idea that's been proposed, and I think it was Joe Biden of all people that was talking about it, saying, get rid of private donations. I mean, there should be no private donations to any campaigns or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's not. We're just like, if you qualify for the debates, then you get the public money. That could easily backfire. The whole political system that we have is just absolutely disastrous. No matter what way you go, there's going to be a certain element of corruption within our political system. Maybe we need just some massive overhaul of human civilization and just to actually approach things in a different way. But you've heard me ramble a little bit about the presidential candidates, and I think that that's kind of just everything that we had to say. So it's pretty much like people like who want to take selfies with their followers, not a big deal. And this wealth tax that Elizabeth Warren is talking about, and it's only talking about assets of $50 million or higher. I mean, the reason why you implement policies like that is because there's almost like no reason not to. The rich can adapt to any sort of tax plan like that. I mean, maybe they don't want to pay it, but I don't really believe that it's going to be causing disastrous effects on the economy. Just, from a completely uninformed standpoint, just sitting back and like watching a YouTube video from the presidential debates. And also, I mean, hosting a fundraiser in a wine cave isn't really a big deal, but trying to cover it up and saying that, oh, they're only giving $2,800. Yeah, what else are you giving them, Buttigieg? Like, what are you giving them in exchange for that? What about this whole quid pro quo thing, this for that? What about, giving them positions of power or having influence over the people that you put in your cabinet, the people that you appoint ambassadors? What about giving them a greater form of access? Like, for example, control to certain ports, or how about opening up certain areas for offshore drilling and things like that? I mean, these are the kind of things that happen in those types of meetings that people are afraid of. So, as we conclude this year, I mean, I think we're just going to be looking forward to an even messier 2020. I think it's just only going to get messier. The candidates might get a little bit smaller in the field, but things could get even messier, and it's just going to be an absolute up and down. We're probably going to see a little bit of Bernie Sanders going up and down, a little bit of Warren going up and down. Somebody said on the 538 Politics podcast that Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee. She's like, I don't think that Biden's going to be the nominee, but I can't tell you why. And that resonated with me, and that stuck with me. And I was like, maybe she has a point. Maybe there's going to be something that's going to push Biden down in the polls, and then Bernie or Warren is going to come up. To be honest with you guys, I thought that Kamala Harris had a very large chance of becoming the nominee, but she's already dropped out. And some people think, though, that that's being Kamala is being in cahoots with the Biden campaign, that they're going to put Biden on top of the ticket and Kamala as VP. I don't know about that. We'll have to wait and see. But that's all from me now. If you have anything to say at all about the presidential election, if you have anything to say at all about any other things in politics, please drop a comment below. I mean, we've covered some things in the past, like the Senate elections, congressional elections. We have all of that stuff coming up in 2020. It's an election year. I know political uploads aren't super popular, but let's just keep on going, and let's see how these things play out. And I want to hear from you guys about what you want to hear, and until next time.